We're back.
Ta-da!
Ta-da! We are back. We are back.
Happy Monday.
It's a Monday. Another edition of Get Found.
Be seen.
Be seen. That's right. Carl Allen and Monty Armstrong talking about Monty.
Talking about Monty?
Well, I'm talking to Monty about some of this can have to do with Monty, and some of this has to do with Carl, too. We could say this whole imposter syndrome, the silent battle. Ooh.
Indeed.
Interesting topic. Yes, indeed. A very important topic because a lot of people struggle with it. But first of all, Monty, I hope you had a great weekend.
The weekend, long weekend here in the U.S. Many of us did the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday long weekend thing.
That's right.
Because, this last Thursday, as everybody knows, was my anniversary, and that's what was most important. So we took a 4-day weekend. Oh, yeah, and there was that turkey thing. There was some turkey involved, but
fried turkey.
Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. No, congratulations.
It was great. The Thanksgiving family gathering, seeing relatives, being thankful of the little things. Grateful, right. Being grateful of the little things. Yeah, so the weekend was good. We could go on to that for a long time. How about you?
Weekend. And congratulations, by the way. It was really good. We had a great time with family. My son had a great time. His girlfriend was in town with her dad, and that was great. Fun experience, fun time, had a blast. It's great to be with family. Really thankful.
That's the best part.
That is the best part. So, Monty, yes, this whole imposter syndrome thing. I'm happy we're talking about it today.
Yes. And like you mentioned, it is about Monty and Carl and a bunch of other people too.
Yep. And if you're tuning in, it's about you too.
And snuck in there that introverts, because you were saying not everybody, lots of people have feelings of imposter syndrome.
Right.
And different people experience them differently. So we thought we would kind of focus in on the introverted side of it, since that is us.
That's right.
In different ways. So there's a whole nother word to define. I think actually did we do a show on that one already? We've done so many shows, I don't remember all of them. So we'll have to go and look and see if we did that. We need to do that if we haven't done that. If we have, we should probably revisit it, because the definition of words, that's what we're going to go into with imposter syndrome. Since we were just talking right before the show, I mean, what do people think imposter syndrome is? Well, let's look in the dictionary. And we got several different variations, very similar, but focused on different aspects and key of the definition. So I like the first one that I saw was the persistent inability to believe.
Yeah.
Like, ooh, whoa, persistent inability. That's pretty severe. And I'm not at that level. Thankfully, I'm thankful for that. I sympathize for those who are at that level if they're feeling it on that severe of a basis. It's like, oh, goodness, let's try and do something about that, because I know that just occasional feelings are bad enough.
Right. And true, and it depends on what season in life you are, because, for some, I know for me, and sometimes I usually have a positive mindset, right? And then being in the entertainment industry for almost 37 years, time flies. You train your mind gets trained to be a certain way, to be so focused on your goal and where you got to get to. But there's some seasons where if the pressure's on, it's like it could persist more. It could be a certain time of the year. It could be like, wow, I got to set my goals. January, oh my gosh, there's so much to do. I'm overwhelmed. And it's only January, second week of January, for example. So it could rear its ugly head around that time more so than it would in March, where I'm kind of coasting with my rhythm in my schedule. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it all depends. So it's interesting. That's something to think about too. It could hit you at certain points of a year.
Sure. Yeah, I think that it falls under the bigger umbrella of events. Maybe the events that you're describing are during certain times of the year.
Right.
Sometimes maybe those events are just sporadic because
Right.
you encounter the situation,
Right.
and then potentially your ability to cope. So it's like, oh, sometimes I have some feelings and I squash them, but I was really down already. I was already depressed. I had some things, personal life that carried over. I was extra tired, under the weather. There's a bunch of things that can, drain your battery.
Right.
And make it more difficult to cope with those feelings. And that's where the mechanisms can come in, where you can train yourself. When you have a feeling, you can react in a certain way.
Right. That is so true. Like you mentioned that too. I'll say this too. Like we're not doctors, we're not psychologists, but there are times too, like if the weather's heavy, like really cold, sometimes people can have that challenge with the seasonal depression and things such as that. It's like that's a whole other level too, but there is a wide spectrum and it's different for different people. So
I think just being aware, we're like you said, we're not psychiatrists, we're not psychologists, we're not trained or schooled or anything, but we are, several decades old and have experienced some stuffs, and where it's not about, well, how are other people experiencing it and feeling it? It's how are we experiencing it and feeling it, and therefore other people are going to be in the same category.
Shout out to John, by the way. John Judge, hello there. Good to see you.
Happy holidays. The one that's over.
Happy holidays.
Creeping up, and the several that are creeping up, depending on where you are in the world, time zones, and all that.
All that good stuff. So yeah, it's interesting. It hits us at different times, but it is real. And sometimes for some people, they're not even aware of it. But when it's brought to your attention and you're, like you mentioned, you're aware of it, it's really helpful, and you're able to equip yourself. You're able to arm yourself and give yourself mechanisms that can help you navigate through it. And I find that helpful. And so, Monty, we also talked about for introverts, right?
Before you move on, Carl, before you move on.
Yeah.
You said mechanisms to protect yourself. And I think it's interesting because the overall thing about life, and you can't control stuff, it's how you react to it. And so rather than putting on armor to protect yourself to something, which means that you're going to be either not getting as much input or not putting out as much output. Either way, armor obstructs that, but having the mechanisms to help protect yourself. So I just envision, my mind goes into cartoon mode, rubber band thing is like, oh, I'm going to get squashed. Doing, pulls you out of the way. It's the mechanism. It's like, oh, we detected a problem. Safety. So just reaction.
Right.
Fun stuff rather than
that's
turtling.
Good. Right. But I feel, for me, I think about armor like a soldier. You know what I mean? So I think, whatever analogy you can use to help you navigate through it, like I think about armor.
Absolutely.
Like a sword, I could cut through it. I could be in the offense, I could be in the defense. And so I think about being that dynamic, but if you think about that cartoon character, whatever you can use to help you navigate through it is a big deal. It's helpful, and I'm glad as humans, we're the only beings on this planet who could think about our thinking. We're kind of getting deep with this, but it's great we're creative. We can use these mechanisms to help us to navigate, especially if we're introverts, because and that's what I wanted to talk about too. And it's kind of connected to what we were talking about. For us, we had that experience as introverts. Do you want to speak to that a little bit, Monty? Because that's a big deal.
Yeah, the overlying umbrella of topic here is different angles and interpretations of a definition of a feeling and a word and a situation. So 1, the imposter syndrome, 2, this armor and how we wear it, or how it may obstruct or, it's like, oh, there's different interpretations of something, and then moving into introvert too. There's again, different levels of and different interpretations of, but I think rather than trying to define it, because like I said, that's a whole different show. The point is, how does introvertism and imposter syndromeism, how do those two different things relate? What are we talking about when we say there's a connection there? And again, all I can really talk about is my experience personally.
Yeah. Right.
And personally, I would say that because I have been an introvert in the style of, I just want one-on-one type of relationships, where if I had a friend and they invited 2 other friends over, I usually took off. I 3 friends, it was too many for me to hang out with at one time, typically speaking. Not that I couldn't, not that I didn't. It wasn't my preferred mode of operation.
Right.
So when I looked at some of these other friends, they seemed more successful. They were more social. They were the hub. Everybody, they hung out with all kinds of people, and I had to wait my turn. I didn't have to, but I wanted to. I felt like if I wanted to get the type of relationship that I wanted, I had to wait a turn. If I wanted to go hang out with them and share the time with a bunch of other people, I could go do that too. But there's that introvert part was, well, I just wanted to hang out with them so I could ask them some cool questions and not have someone else butt in on it.
Yeah. No, that too.
Because I want to talk to that person, but I want to listen to them. I was trying to listen to them, and that's my introvertism. And so again, back to so there's that hub person. I see them and I'm like, gosh, I'm not like that. I'll never be able to have a bunch of friends around me.
Yeah. That's right. That's real. And I know a lot of people could identify with that. And it's interesting for me, coming from the entertainment industry for almost 37 years, I was always, for the most part, in front of a lot of people. So, you train your mind you learn the skills and tools to be focused and to be able to get a message out and to be able to perform, even if you perform at a high level. And by the way, even a lot of artists are introverts. Now, for me, when I got on the one-on-ones, that's when it was tricky. And I love how you talked about being that hub person. My wife, she's the hub person. For me, I'm not necessarily a hub person. People get benefits from me using my talents, but that's different than being the hub person that loves being around people. That's a magnet. That's you could talk all day.
Here's my definition of the hub person. They never need to call anybody to set anything up. People are always calling. Hey, you want to go to lunch? Yeah, okay. Hey, you want to do this? Hey, you want to do this? Hey, you want to? Yeah. Well, I'm already doing something. Why don't you come along? They're never having to call anybody up and say, "Do you want to go do this?" In fact, most hub people. Well, I shouldn't say that. Not most. There's the planner, and they are calling all kinds of people.
Right.
But there's also the people I'm envisioning that were in my life were the people that they didn't need to call anybody. In fact, if people needed to be called, they just mentioned it to one of the spokes. And those people were like more than happy. Yeah, I'll call the guys up. I'll call the squad.
Yeah, that next person will do it. Yeah.
Right. So either they are the planner or they know the planner.
Right.
But still, they don't have to do the initiation of contact.
Right.
Very often, if at all.
Right. No, that's good. That's good hearing your definition. And mine is kind of like that, except, where they might do the initiation, but they'll say it as opposed to, do you want to? Let's go do this. Let's go do that. You know what I mean? And they're like, okay, bet. They're the sparks. They're the sparker, the party starter, so to speak. But they're also that person where they said the other person says, hey, you want to go do this? Let's go. Everyone is attracted to that person is the point. So it's that's great that you mentioned it, and even mentioned it from my perspective, But the point is too, it's just like, okay, they're magnets and they vibe off of that and they're energized by that. But someone like me, I'm just like, it sucks my energy. So I have to always find ways to recharge. So for me, that's the angle I'm coming from when it comes to being an introvert. And also, if I'm gonna say this too, because some people ask and think about, well, maybe you're an extrovert introvert, maybe you're ambivert, as they say. Now, yeah, that's something to reflect on and think about. And if you need to take tests, you can do that. And we're not saying you should do this or do that. We're just making the point of introvert. We're just talking about the topic. But for me, I found that, yeah, I'm an introvert, definitely. I tested it out. No, I'm not an ambivert. So for me, I just felt like, wow, it's good for me to be self-aware and to be aware of the fact that that's who I am. That's my personality naturally. And as far as, we could talk further on as far as tools to navigate through that. But from our conversations thus far, we could agree that, there's that connection between imposter syndrome and introversion. Right, Monty?
Right. We kind of went off onto, the different views of introversion, and we haven't fully connected that yet. We've hinted at it.
We've hinted. Yeah.
And so therefore, by defining that of how we feel, we can now say, okay, well, because I'm that way, and I touch base with my friends, but now in a business world as an adult, I can say I don't have any physical contact with anybody in the marketing world. It's all across the internet. So I don't have any validation here in my local world. So when I see someone in my Dream 100 list of where I would like to be, which I guess there's another interpretation. There's a couple of Dream 100 lists. But if I'm looking at the list of people where I'd like to go, not people I'd like to work with, bring along with me, but the people I want to achieve that level of success.
Right.
Then I start looking at that. Oh, well, they are those hub type people and I'm not.
Yeah.
And so I would, and then we get into this. I would need to pretend. I would need to force myself. I would need to do that in order to be successful. And I like what you said. I want to touch base a little bit back, the recharging, you said. I agree with that, because even in my one-on-one introverted relationships, I wanted a break from. It wasn't that I always wanted to hang out with one person. It was that I wanted to have really meaningful, deep connections with people at chunks. And then I wanted to go and recharge. And especially if I needed to be in a group, then like you said, it's like, well, I can do that. And so here I'm envisioning, I'm expending all that energy to do that activity. And I'm tired. After a while, I want to go rest.
Right. No, that's real. I could definitely identify with that. From my point of view, being on the East Coast, a lot of my connection is via the internet. But I've gotten back to the point to connecting with people physically. I mean, I did before, but I didn't have an emphasis on it. Like when I was in the early 2000s, I was a talent agent in the entertainment industry. So I was working in New York, and I had to, as an introvert, what? Monty, I had to get out. I wasn't driving. In New York, you don't drive. You're in the city. You're on the train. You're in the cab. They didn't have Ubers back then. And you had to be in people's faces. You had to be on the scene all the time. And I had clients where if they had a show on Broadway or a music video set, or if I had to go to a record company to deliver material, because you physically deliver material, you had to be in their faces. So that was hard. So I was on the ground, boots to the ground going. And so I'm kind of I'm doing the marketing thing online, but I'm also getting back to the boots to the ground type of thing as well. So I'm kind of doing both. Interesting, and it's uncomfortable because I know I did do it, but I did it with one kid, 2 kids back then. Now I'm doing it with 5 kids. That's part of my personal life, but it's included.
Well, that's part of that. Like I was saying, sometimes you're more tired than other days, and sometimes you're juggling more things. So to say, I went from 3 kids to 5 kids.
Part of it, of course.
Although a couple of them are now older than they were when you only had 3 kids, and so now there's this whole different dynamic.
Mm-hmm. Totally, which is a whole other topic, right?
Exactly. But it's just leading to that, different people under different circumstances are going to approach the same situation in different ways.
Right. So that's, and I'm glad we talked about this too, because that speaks to that. Like we're all in different places. So the key to that is being aware and having tools that can help you navigate through.
Being aware.
Self-awareness. And let's make a note of that, Monty, too. We got to talk a lot about that when we write our book.
Well, we'll definitely pull out the archive. We have a show about awareness. I think there's an acronym for it too. So
that's right.
Yeah. I was just talking with someone this morning about awareness of your past and so that you can look at patterns. And that's the whole thing here also, is looking at patterns. Okay, how do I react under these circumstances? When do I have these feelings? Where am I? What's going on? It's okay. Now I can at least start saying, well, when I encounter this situation, I start having those feelings. So now I can build a mechanism that when I go into this situation, I already have my defense ready. I already have my mindset set.
Mindset set. Yeah, absolutely. And I think what we talked about too, I'm not sure if you can say this for you, but for me, Monty, what I was talking about with those two coming from those 2 angles, they could definitely present some triggers for me. That could say, oh my God. And then the thing is, though, things are going so fast, you don't realize it until later on, or if at all.
And that's where the self-awareness comes in.
Right.
Because you can't plan for everything.
Yeah.
And you can't do anything about a lot of things.
Right.
And again, it's not, how you grow or what you learn. It's how you react.
Right.
And that's going to be different. You're not a robot. And so therefore you're not necessarily going to react the same way to a variable situation. There's those exceptions that, I have a defensive reaction. Anytime something comes at my face, I swat it out of the way. All right. And we're not talking about that.
Yeah.
Talking about when someone presents this success, I start to get those feelings. Oh, I can't have that success.
Right.
Or I liked one of those other definitions, the ongoing fear for imposter syndrome. Ongoing fear that they're going to be found out or unmasked as being incompetent.
Right.
And so there's that. I'm okay with what I'm doing. And then I look to the future. I look up. I see that more successful person. And now I'm looking forward at this, what I need to do or where I'm not at, or I'm trying to do the same thing that they're doing, but they're so much more experienced than I am. They have so much more credentials. They've been doing it for so much longer. Why would anybody want to follow me? Why would anyone listen to me?
Right.
So that there's that trip. There's that trip up.
Right. No, it's definitely been there.
And as an introvert, I don't have anyone to draw on in the same way. And potentially the other point I think about introverts versus an extrovert in the overall sense is, like I said, the hub type person, they're too busy. They're too busy to have feelings of inadequacy, or maybe I'm an imposter. Now, of course, there's exceptions for that, because there's the clinical psychological, persistent inability type of scenario that could be afflicting someone. But for the person in our category, that's just certain things trigger these feelings. I think in that it's going in many directions. I'm not even sure where I was going exactly with that.
No, you're making a great point. People can get tripped up, and there are many other different scenarios that take place as well. You talked about the extrovert. They're busy thinking about, they're busy getting busy, so to speak, and enjoying being the life of the party, or enjoying the party. Not every, it's don't, take what we're saying with a grain of salt. Not every extrovert per se, but. And I think about, it's funny, I had a conversation with a good friend of mine, and we talked about being introverts. We're both introverts. And what we talked about, he said, he used the word reflective. He's like, I'm very reflective. I said, I am very contemplative. I contemplate. Same thing, right? But we came from different angles. And I thought that was pretty cool. And it's not that I said, for some extroverts, they're busy getting busy, but we're busy too. We're thinking, we're reflecting, we're contemplating.
And I think that's where I was alluding to. I think that you brought me back to that point, is that they're so busy. Introverts have more thinking time often. I have more thinking time. And introverts like me have more thinking time. And there is where it's like, what thing happens that trips you up? Well, I think too much. That would be the first. So, I mean, that's probably the second stage, because it's I encounter a situation and I think too much about it. Or like I was saying, looking to the future, because then you have the whole, but look where you've been type of scenario.
Right. And by the way, I like when you talked about stages. That's great. That's great. That is great. But it's very true, though. We're thinking in stages, and it's like, I could relate to that. Not, you're kind of in it, but my point is that, you are busy doing it. It's just like, how do you navigate through that? How do you get the direction you need to get to navigate through it? And at some point, I'd like to speak to this too. I've been working with a specific tool, different tools, but one tool in particular that's helped me to navigate through that. Because I find that point in reflecting or contemplating, the word I like to use, is so important, because it helps me to be connected to what I got to do, and it helps me out with my why. Now, the next stage for me is navigating through it. You know what I mean? So I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but that's the thought I had when you mentioned what you mentioned.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, and that fires me up.
There's that thinking part. Not saying extroverts don't think.
Yeah, everyone thinks.
Right. Mm-hmm. There's just, who has tendencies to do certain things?
Right.
That's all. Being aware. Are you the type of person, whether you're introvert or extrovert, ultimately, the bottom line is, can you be self-aware? Can you contemplate? Can you look to the past and find some patterns? And therefore, that's not just a look for the stuff that you can change and make better. It's also look for the stuff that's working well and keep doing it and do more of it. There's a double meaning to that whole find the pattern. And it doesn't even have to be your pattern. That's the whole thing about following someone or getting a coach or having a mentor. It's that they've developed a pattern, and most likely they've seen it, and now they're hopefully teaching it or presenting it in a way that you can learn from it.
Right. Absolutely. They can be that guide, to help guide you through it if you need that guidance, because it is important. It's a big topic. And I thought, in my mind, the whole imposter syndrome, even when people talked about it, it was kind of like in the back of my mind, I thought maybe it was like some kind of phase. But especially even this year, I notice it a lot more in people I've worked with.
And it's almost one of those terms that people are saying is overused and used incorrectly and have negative connotations to it. And that's why I thought this was great to have that definition. It's like, whoa, what's it?
Right.
That depends. If you're saying just the clinical thing where you're needing like psychiatric help and drugs, it's like, well, that's not the only definition. That's not the only level, stage, phase. And it could be phases for some people.
Right.
And it's not necessarily one of those phases that you grow out of, or, you know, you're one and done. When I say phase, maybe the phase is seasonal.
Right. It's worth revisiting. That's where we talked about the self-awareness. Once you're self-aware, you could keep revisiting, and it could be like a checkpoint. I like talking about checkpoints. Even as you go through your day, checkpoints. As you go through your week, checkpoint. As you go through your month, checkpoint. Where am I at with this? You know, is imposter syndrome?
That sounds like a mechanism to me.
Ooh,
we'll have to work on that one. That sounds pretty cool. Checkpoints. I had a post about that. I wrote a post about that. Probably 3 years ago, and it's really, really helpful. Yeah, we'll pull that out of the archive and take a look at it. Maybe do a show or do something on that idea, because I like that for myself.
Yeah, checkpoints. Checkpoints.
Really, thing is like, oh well, when you encounter, I talk about mechanism. Yeah. Well, the checkpoints could be the mechanism. Oh, I've encountered this situation.
Yeah.
Let me look at my last checkpoint. It's almost like a save point in a video game.
Right. It's a power phrase. I like saying power word. It's a power phrase because it's not something that's negative where you're going to want to bury in the back of your mind. It's like, ooh, checkpoint. What's the next checkpoint? How am I between that checkpoint and the last one? Where am I at? You know, and it's gamified in a sense. It's set. Sure. It's systematized to be gamified to what you need to do.
It puts in specific pivot points for the pivot. Yeah. All right. Well, that's starting to go a couple topics.
Mm-hmm. It's in line. It's in line. There, it's all connected. We're putting the topic. Yeah, we're putting them in our pocket. But
there's the connection though, that to all those other topics, is that we are going to be talking about introverts and imposter syndrome more, because that's what we are, and that's what we have and do deal with, is feelings of. Again, I'm not claiming, I'm a perpetual I just know that some days I'm feeling great and other days I'm feeling like, why do I bother? So being self-aware, and let's discuss it, and that's the best way to find those patterns.
Right. And sometimes you're right in the middle, say, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
I've learned to have fun with that one.
Well, at least that one you're already there.
Right.
Yeah, it's like, it's not like about ready to press record and then you're like, oh, what am I doing? Why am I even bothering?
Right.
Yeah, that's the rough one.
You're in it.
Yep. That's interesting. I was talking with a friend of ours this morning, Stephen, and we were discussing why you and I started this show.
Mm-hmm.
And in the thick of it, that's not what he said, but that's what I'm thinking now. You're in it. And that's the thing, that it's kind of like, well, he's seen Monty hooked up with Carl, and Carl clicks the record button, and Monty's just along for the ride. It's like, well, you could jump out if you want, but the car's rolling, buddy.
The car's rolling.
So that was an interesting aspect of any kind of imposter syndrome. What am I doing here trying to do this podcast? Nobody's watching me anyway. Nobody's going to watch me ever anyway.
Right.
And those feelings, I had, it was helpful having you at the controls. So that was interesting talking with Stephen and realizing that, and saying that maybe I didn't consciously do that, but now I can at least be self-aware and look back and find the pattern and say, ooh, hey, for other people, there's a cool tactic. We'll drop this little nugget right there. That should be part of a course.
Wow. Whoa.
Really?
That's good. That's interesting you say that, Monty, because it's funny, even like what I've done, like what I've being in the entertainment industry, I've always found myself pressing buttons and doing things while I'm going. And like, I'm like, why is that? This is weird. If I could just focus on, even as a performing artist, like there's one time I did this company I had, we did a production and I was pressing buttons while we were going. And if I could just do one or the other, like for me, naturally in my my natural state, if I'm going to press buttons, I'd rather be behind the scenes, not doing anything. I don't want to talk, or I want to talk and I don't want to press buttons. So it's interesting. We're talking about both of our journeys and relating it to imposter syndrome and being introverts. And it's interesting to hear your perspective.
Right. Wow. Yeah. And that's the great huge diversity between you and the New York scene. I've never been to New York. Yeah. Thinking about going to New York gives me anxiety. Yeah. I someday I'll come visit you and it's like, man, let me tell you what that means. Because I'm going to have to overcome feelings of anxiety to go to the East Coast, to go to that many people per square inch. It's just, I'm on the West Coast in a super rural area. When I go to the biggest town in the state, it's still the smallest metropolitan area in the country. So it's like, and it's too big for me. If I have to go, I go do the thing. It's like go to the airport, do that thing or whatever, and be done and go home. Because I'm an introvert, really an introvert. I think that's too much. That drains me. I can do it. It's not like I'm so scared I can't go do it, but I get tense, and it saps my energy. Man, does it sap my energy? Yeah. No, understandable. And so and there's that. I'm from that side of the introverts field, and describing my friends and the hub people and the one-on-one relationships and that sort of thing. And you've been describing that I feel like that, but I'm in this other world, and so I've experienced it differently. Right. Yeah. And it's interesting, hearing you and contemplating on that. And one thing we want to think about too, Monty, for future, is the desires. We talk about desires, pains and desires, the desires that we feel, and the desires I just expressed, like, hey, I'd rather do one or the other, not both. And it's interesting that I'm in front doing both. And it's uncomfortable, but it trains me. But being aware that's important. And there's that adds into the mix. It's like, and we're also solopreneurs. So we won't really dive into that one right now, but that's another. It's like, hey, these people oftentimes think in a different way, and then you add in that, you and I are solopreneurs, you and I are introverts. And then therefore, when we encounter this situation and we have the feelings of imposter syndrome, that's a lot of layers of stuff, a lot of vectors coming in there. Right, Monty. Shall we talk about mechanism? Some ways to kind of navigate. Well, we can touch base a little bit more. I liked the checkpoint mechanism idea because it involves the looking back behind you and where you've been, rather than forward and where someone else has been. Right. Oh, I love that. You added something new to that, though. Oh, what's new? What do you feel is new on that? Well, you completed a thought.
Remember that? You completed the thought. So checking back from where you were, as opposed to comparing yourself to where other people are. That's a huge deal. That's a big deal right there.
Yeah, I found that is big for me. That's the mechanism, the defense mechanism, if you will.
Yeah.
When I encounter those feelings, and especially when it's like you need to have a mentor, you need to look at other people's successes so that you can see what kind of options are available out there and what's working for people. And so therefore there's the danger.
Yeah.
That's the thing that trips me up. That's the mechanism, or not mechanism. That's what I need the mechanism for, but that's the situation.
Yeah.
That sparks that feeling. And it's the, oh, look at where they're at. And like I said, I could say it over and over and over again. It's like they have so many followers. They have so much stuff in their membership area. They have so many videos. They have, which is actually saying I don't have.
Yeah.
And there's that be self-aware and reflect, because that's not necessarily true. You don't have what they have, but it's not necessarily that you don't have that quality or have those things. You just don't have them at that level. And so if you're looking forward, that's unfair. You're being unfair to yourself.
Yeah.
It's really helped me to know, to look back and those milestones.
True.
To say those checkpoints.
Right.
I like the checkpoints. It's like, oh yeah, because I'm thinking about checking back.
Right.
We're gonna dive deep into the whole subject of the mechanism. All right, here we go. I'm just starting to feel those feelings. It's like, whoa, I'm getting there. You know how I know I'm getting there? Because 6 months ago, I was at that checkpoint back there.
Right.
So I know I've made progress towards my goal. How close to my goal am I? Does it matter?
Yeah.
I'm closer. Yeah, but how are you going fast enough? Here's a great thing. I talked with Steven this morning. We had a lot of good stuff this morning.
Love it.
What would you tell yourself if you could go back in time? What would you tell yourself? Nothing. Because my old self isn't ready. If I went back and told my old self, dude, you need to do this and we're going to be rich, my old self's going to be like, yeah, whatever.
Right.
I don't want to. I don't see the value. I can't.
Right. Makes sense.
I guess that in our discussion, the thing would be, well, go back and give yourself the mechanism, give yourself the milestone mechanism. I guess that's what I could say. I could go back and tell myself, not what steps to go forward and do, but what things that you can do that will help you move forward.
Right.
Interesting.
I
hadn't come across that thought.
Yeah, I love that. And I would add to it too, like give yourself, and this is kind of like that too. And this is the way I'd say it, give yourself the vehicle. Because we've gotten tons of steps over the years, tons of steps, but we weren't in that place to receive it or in that place to take those steps forward. But if you give yourself a vehicle, you create the environment. And if you create the environment, it builds your confidence. Like I think about a room, this virtual room, there are lights and I got my computers on the side and I'm set up. If I'm set up, I can move forward and go throughout my day, but so my vehicle helps me with my confidence and it helps me with my growth. So
when you were saying all that, it made me realize also, and I already said this with Steven, and here I am going, oh yeah, I said that with Steven, and wow, it sure does apply. Except now that I yammered too much and the thought just flew right out of my head. So that was fun.
It'll come back. It'll come back. It'll come back. You know, and Monty, I'm gonna put some content about this. Can I share another mechanism?
Yes, please do.
So one thing I love, I have other ones too, but one of my main go-tos is the Pomodoro technique.
Yes, you speak of that often.
I often speak of that, and
I like it
because it helps me to create an environment. It creates an environment for me, and it helps me to get in a zone. Helps me to amplify my focus. And if I'm focused, I'm not thinking about other things, although those things are there, you know, but you have to wait till that timer goes off. And
okay, so but I'm going to elaborate a little bit on what you said there and apply it specifically to a mechanism to help you fight feelings of imposter syndrome when they arise up unexpectedly. And it's the grabbing a hold of the Pomodoro technique and saying, that's not part of my chunk of time right now. I have to set that aside. I can think about that at the appropriate time. And that's an interesting way of going forth, because you've set yourself up. You've put that feeling in your queue of priority, which changes. And so therefore you have the potential of just squashing that down and making it so low priority that it's there's just some stuff that falls out of that queue.
Right.
Our lives are so busy and so full of stuff. That's how it works. I want to get this done, this done, this done, this done. It's like, yeah, but you need to get this done, this done. Okay, well, I'll rearrange it. And pretty soon that thing that you wanted to get done, it just isn't all that important. It's down here. And suddenly it's like days later, like, oh yeah, I was thinking about doing that the other day. I never got around to it. It wasn't that important.
Right.
It's not picking up the oxygen tank for grandma.
Yeah,
that's gonna be shuffled up there, until it gets done.
Right. And we're not talking about something that intense, And so when I love how you said that, and now for me, I'll say that to myself before I set the timer. So it's like you're speeding down a raceway, and there's no time to think about that other stuff. And I related to there's another book where Mel Robbins wrote called The 5-Second Rule. And it's that whole thing of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Like as for some of us as kids, our parents said that 3, 2, 1, we needed to behave. And what did the kid do? They got themselves together in that short amount of time. And it's kind of for me, I kind of gamify it. And I use that with the Pomodoro technique. I'm not thinking about these other things because they're little foxes that's going to get in my way. And so all I got to think about is just getting that task done. And I know that that's all I have. This is all the time I had to get it done, because once that timer goes off, I might do a couple more for this project, but after a certain time, I got to be done with it. That's all I got.
And I like that. So you can use that in two ways. You described how I'm setting myself up ahead of time. Pomodoro, I've set up my time frame, whatever that's going to be.
Right.
And so therefore, if you run into something, it's like the plow on the front, it's like, yeah, don't have time for that. Don't have time for that. And I'm looking at it from another standpoint of, if you're in the middle of something and you weren't planning to have that hiccup, or maybe the analogy is you got something that's so big you can't slough it off to the side,
right?
Then I'm saying it's the mechanism of the triggered mechanism. I've encountered this thing. All right, I'm going to consciously say, I only have this much time left in my block, and that's not in it.
Yeah.
I'll use my little excavator arm and reach over there and pick that thing up and plop it over here in my queue. I will deal with you later, not at 4 o'clock, not at 7 o'clock, not at a specific date or time. Just that, plop you over there for later, because maybe I'll forget about you. Right.
And in my opinion, this is part of the psychology. It's like when you put yourself on a timer, and I use this with public speaking as well. And when I have put myself in a timer and you're giving yourself full energy during that time. You're giving yourself intense energy during that time, and nothing's going to get in your way. It's kind of like it's a peak performance tool too, where anybody can do it, because as human beings, we're amazing as far as human beings. And once we get in the zone of performing on a certain level or a high level, nothing's going to get in our way. Now, for example, if I'm not trying to get off topic, but extreme example, if we see someone drowning, what are we going to do? We're going to go and try to save that person. Nothing else matters. We're giving our full energy to it. That's an extreme example. But so if there's something that needs to get done and we're giving our intense energy to it, we're gonna give our intense energy to it no matter what. It's just hard to operate on that level. And so that's a tool that helps.
You just demonstrated the exceptions on stuff. It's like, okay, I'm doing my thing. I've only got 10 minutes left to do it. That person's drowning. I don't have time. No. Sometimes that's what I'm talking about, the priority queue. It's like, oh, I have 10 minutes left, but that takes priority.
Right.
My kid fell off the fence. The dog bit the mailman. There's just certain things that you have to have a different mechanism for. That's a different scenario.
Right.
It's about the imposter syndrome. That's what we're talking about for that Pomodoro technique of chunks of time.
Yeah.
And being able to cope with things and that can flow over. So it's not just imposter syndrome. It's other things that might trip you up. Rabbit holes.
Right. And just getting in some of those rabbit holes could be doubt.
They could be doubt. Or I'm just talking about just rabbit holes. You're like, you're doing a thing and it happens to me all the time. So that's why I think about it and mechanisms to, it's like, okay, I only have 20 minutes. Let me see if I can get this blog post written. Okay, well, I need to do this. Oh, I got to log in. Oh, and because I had to log in, now there's the little red thing that says there's a notification. What's that about? And that's where I need to have that triggered mechanism that says, I don't have time for that.
Right.
Is that stopping me from doing this? No, it's just one of those little red dots, and we're been trained. Red, oh crap, I got to take care of it.
Right.
So that's just my personal example of using that technique of the triggered mechanism of I'm going to put you in queue.
Yeah, put it in queue. So we kind of talked about a line of things, but it can be used for all of it. And it's a great mechanism. I find it one of my favorite tools to use.
Well, I've adopted my version of it. I like using a mixture of techniques and different techniques for different things. So it's different tools for different jobs.
Right. Wow, we could talk about this for days, Monty.
Absolutely. Yep. Wrapping that up, keeping it simple. Imposter syndrome and introverts have a unique relationship. It's not that they are exclusive or that extroverts don't feel imposter syndrome or that one way is the other way or whatever. We're just, because Carl and I are both introverts and because we have both encountered these feelings that come up at certain times. If you want to know when those times were, you have to rewind and go watch the first part of the show. and how we have coped with them and how we have seen each other coping with them and adopted someone else's view. I like it.
Yes. And the mechanisms are super helpful. Understanding the imposter syndrome and the link between that and introverts is important. Play around, experiment, explore. I like to tell my students, explore the different mechanisms. See what works for you. It's a journey.
Indeed. Well, let's wrap that up. Thank you all for watching the show. If that inspired you for anything, we'd love to have some kind of comment, question, relatability. Do you feel anything like Carl does? Do you feel anything like Monty does? Or do you want a totally different wavelength? What are you thinking?
Right. What is for you? Is it a challenge? Is introversion a challenge for you? It's not a, it's a good thing. I think it's definitely a superpower, in my opinion.
It is a thing. They say, take your weakness and make it your strength. It doesn't have to be a weakness.
Doesn't have to be
in the first place. But if you feel it as a weakness, then let's talk about making it a strength, because it's just identifying who you are. Bruce Lee had one leg shorter than the other. Did you know that?
Did not know.
That's what made his stance. He made this imperfection of his body, into the strength of what he was.
I like that.
So there we go.
Wrapping
up the show with some mindset for you.
With some mindset. And Monty, if people wanted to find you and understand more about this, and also, how do you, let's talk about this whole ideal client thing and this ideal client map. Can you explain more of that? Where can they go to find you?
Oh, goodness. Ideal client map, being unwhelmed. There's all sorts of things that we could talk about, but go to montyarmstrong.com.
Boom, montyarmstrong.com.
And on the flip side of the StreamYard board, if you are experiencing feelings of imposter syndrome, if you are feeling unconfident in your camera capers, just trying to come up with some more C's. If you'd like a little bit of help getting over those feelings of inadequacy on camera, or shyness on camera, or lack of confidence, where could they go and find out the options they have available to them?
Yes. For the options. If you want to gain more confidence on camera, on stage, or in any room, you can go to carlaleen.com. And we'll get you going.
Perfect.
Perfect. And you've been watching another edition of Get Found,
Be Seen.
We'll talk to you soon.
Have a great week.
Have a party.